Welcome to Mission Sunlight. This quarter we are learning more about the work among particular people groups within the North American Division. In the early years of Canada and the United States, many immigrants arrived to begin new lives. They came with hopes, anticipation, and dreams. Many learned new trades, and most learned a common language, English. Today, another group of people are coming to North America with hopes, anticipation, and dreams. Refugees who are seeking a home where they can live in peace and be out from under the fear of persecution are adding to the fabric of communities in the United States and Canada, as well as other countries around the world. At the end of 2009, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees estimated that there were 43.3 million people who had been forcibly displaced. Many of these are persecuted and in danger because of wars that are being fought in their country. Even among early empires such as the Hittites, Babylonians, and ancient Egyptians, people who fled persecution were granted asylum in foreign lands. Modern-day governments around the world participate in the practice of resettling refugees. The world has seen examples of many refugees during the past decades. The Cambodians who gathered along the Thai-Cambodian border during the late 1970s and early 80s, the displaced Sudanese, the Burundians who fled first to Rwanda and then to Tanzania, and Bosnians and Azeris are just a few examples. One of the people groups experiencing much persecution is known as the Karen tribe. They live in the Southeast Asian country of Myanmar, which was formerly known as Burma. For decades, the Karen have been hunted down and forced to flee from the government soldiers. Because of their plight, the United States and other countries have opened the way for Karen to establish new homes far from the dangers of the jungles of Myanmar.
When I was 11 years old, when they captured the whole of our family, except my brother and my sister, and they took us all to the toll number 2 jail. Yes, and they separated us from our mother because according to their plan, they wanted to separate us separately, so they're afraid that my father's armies will recapture us again.
Saul, too, and his siblings were in jail for 1.5 years before they were freed, when family members were able to raise enough money to gain their release. Sadly, his mother spent another year in jail before she was able to gain her freedom. Eventually, the family was able to escape to a refugee camp in Thailand.
We spent in Thailand about 10 years before we have a chance to come here.
I born in a small village called Lebota, and I have to leave my village when I was 7 years old. The reason that we have to leave is because of my father's work. He's chief of the village, and that time the government is really not happy with the Karen people. As the chief of the village is the first target for the government. We cannot reach to the border immediately because of the distance, because of the family needed. So it took a few years to reach to the border.
Although Jimmy and his family had reached the border of Thailand and settled there, they still weren't safe from government troops.
They bombed our village called Metawa. This is the village at the border of Thailand. And only 1 week, the village completely burned out with the fire. So from that time, we crossed the border to Thailand.
Life in a refugee camp is not easy. Housing is primitive. Refugees who are living in the camp are not citizens of the country where they have settled, so the camps are heavily guarded. Special passes must be secured from the proper authorities to enter and leave the camp. Non-governmental aid organizations, such as the Adventist Development and Relief Agency, or ADRA, provide daily necessities such as food, water, healthcare, and even education.
Because even though we live in camp, in a refugee camp, we didn't have the rights like Thai people has, because we are not a citizen in Thailand and we are illegal in Thailand.
When refugees are living in the camps, they must complete an application and approval process to be resettled in another country. This takes time and patience. Approvals and clearances don't come quickly. During a recent year, fewer than 80,000 refugees from around the world were granted resettlement status in the United States. Many of the Karen practiced the traditional religion of Buddhism. Missionaries such as Eric B. Hare left their homeland and journeyed to the land of the Karen to tell the story of Jesus. The Karen were a receptive audience, and many accepted Christ as their Savior. Today, among the respected elderly Karen, there are those who remember Elder Hare from their childhood. The influence of the Christian missionaries has affected generations of Karen who continue to be faithful followers of Jesus. Jimmy's father worked among his people in the refugee camp.
After he left the village, he started working with the people, and that time he started working for the church. People didn't recognize him as a minister, but he's a volunteer worker for the mission work. When we are in the camp, he served as a pastor for the member in the refugee camp.
Although Jimmy watched his father lead others to Jesus, he wanted to work for his people in other ways.
And that time I was still young. I'm not interested in working with the church because of this problem. I want to help my people in some way, something. But all the time my father encouraged me to work for the church. He wanted me to work for God. But I all the time say no. I want to help my people in other way.
God doesn't give up on us easily. For Jimmy, God sent a teacher who encouraged him to study and prepare himself for working with his people.
After I finished my high school, I still want something that to do for my people. My teacher also all the time, she's encouraged me to work for the church. He asked me one day, he said, Jimmy, when you finish the school, what you want to be? I said, I want to be a Christ soldier. I want to defend my people. And she said that, no, we have a lot of Christian soldiers, but we want God soldier for your people. I just smiled, I said, maybe no. And then I worked with her, I worked as a teacher in her school for 3 years. And I thought that this is enough. I better find another way for my future life.
Jimmy believed that God would lead him, but never thought he would be a pastor to his people.
When God wants you to do something, He will provide it.
Eventually, Jimmy Shui was able to receive theological training and did become a pastor to the Karen. Raised as a Buddhist, Saul too learned about Jesus during his early school years.
Before I became a Seventh-day Adventist church member, I was strong Buddhist. My parents are very devout Buddhists. I studied at Aribis High School at Ondor for 2 years. Just after I left, that is about when I was 9 years old. And after I quit that school, we were arrested by the Burmese army and we were put in a jail.
As he languished in the jail, the Bible stories that Saul too learned in school came back to him.
Because of the Buddhist culture, every night in front of the jails, there was a Buddha image that every prisoner must worship when they rang the bell at 8 p.m. every night. That night, when they rang the bell to worship that Buddha image, something touched me, impressed me, that I should not worship that image. Something says to me that that is not the kind of God that help you. If He helps you, you will not be here in the jail. So I refused and I turned my back at that image that night. I remember the story also about Daniel and his friends, and during that time, the Buddhist time. So I refused to worship that.
After leaving jail and then fleeing to the camps, Saul too was eager to learn more about Jesus. It was in the camps where Saul too committed his life to his Savior.
I get a chance to study about Jesus Christ again. Yeah, I started baptized there. So I believe that is the call from God.
Starting your life over in a new country where everything is so different is not an easy path. Imagine not being able to speak the common language or riding on an escalator in a store for the first time. Think about walking into a grocery store and seeing all the food available after you have lived through times when there was nothing to eat but leaves from the trees or bush. Refugees from any country are faced with a myriad of changes to which they must adapt and learn.
It's like a new country, new culture, new people. We feel like a little different. We feel like a little lonely. We feel like we are separated from there. maybe because of the language or the culture. Because for our culture, people know you and you speak the same language, you grow up in the same culture, you understand, automatically you understand whenever you go in your area. But here in different country.
We are so excited about in here, and we very happy because we want to gain our freedom, and we have the right to go to school, and we have friends in school also, and the teachers are very nice to us, and they try very hard for us. But it's really hard for the first year because we don't really speak English, none of English, but after 2 or 3 years it's much better.
On October 29, 1914, Ellen White wrote the following message in the Review and Herald. Her words have special significance today. God would be pleased to see far more accomplished by His people in the presentation of the truth for this time to the foreigners in America than has been done in the past. As I have testified for years, if we were quick in discerning the opening providences of God, we should be able to see in the multiplying opportunities to reach many foreigners in America, a divinely appointed means of rapidly extending the third angel's message into all the nations of the earth. God in His providence has brought men to our very doors and thrust them, as it were, into our arms, that they might learn the truth and be qualified to do a work we could not do in getting the light before men of other tongues. A mission field has been brought to our land. Refugees from Africa, the Middle and Near East, Asia, and Europe are our neighbors. There are many ways to welcome them, even if we don't speak their language.
You can help with volunteering, help the refugee children, to do their homework assignment. That is number one, because of the most of the current refugees are illiterate, and also to help them to understand the rules and laws of this country. That's one more thing. It is very important.
One thing is to teach them English, and the second thing is to be like things that are part of their family. Treat the people that you want them to treat you.
Teach them how to take care of their babies, or drive them to appointments. A lot of them have a problem with transportation. You can invite them to your home. Just becoming friends with them is just a huge blessing to them. There's so many ways that you can be a blessing to the refugees and immigrants from other countries.
Meeting the physical needs is not enough. Many refugees are looking for a spiritual home as well as a physical one.
And another thing for the refugees, people need now is they want a place that they can come together and worship in their own language. They know that the people here care of them and want them to come together with them, worship together with them. They're happy to do it, but when they come and they don't know anything, they feel like they didn't get anything for their spiritual need. When we don't know the language, I think they feel like there is no meaning for them. Some of our young people, from our church, already go to other places, to other denominations, because our care is different. We didn't reach to them a little early.
During the early years of his life, Jesus was a refugee with his parents as they sought safety in Egypt away from the threats of Herod. Imagine how Mary and Joseph longed for a home. What welcome did they receive as they settled in a foreign land? God has brought a mission field to our communities and our churches. By befriending the stranger within our midst, we will demonstrate that we truly are a worldwide family.
We just thank you so much for supporting this and for praying for the refugees and immigrants, international students, and visitors to our country that are here all around us.
On December 31, you will have an opportunity to financially support the formal work of the North American Division in their outreach of meeting the needs of refugees through education, spiritual materials, and other projects. Reporting from the North American Division, this is Mission SONlight.